up, listeners? This is Robert Graves, and this is Year of the Vet, and I'm so happy that you've decided to listen to this podcast today. A little introduction of what it stands for. Year of the Vet, it started out as a saying for the marketing of my own book, How to Grow a Beard, a military transitional guide back into civilian life. And so I wrote this book with transition in mind, and then I got this idea that why can't I just bring the many faces and people that I meet on my journey on trying to advocate for the veteran, why can't I just bring them to you? And so that's what Year of the Vet is. Year of the Vet is my project to bring you the people that I meet that have these phenomenal stories about how they got out of the military, fell on their face straight in the mud, and then had to figure it out to get back up. These people have looked depression in the face. They may have attempted suicide at times. They may have been homeless, living in their car, or maybe they just have a story. But whatever it is that they have, I'm bringing it to you. Hopefully in hopes that you're able to connect on some level. You're able to empathize. You're able to hear you and their story, and then figure out that you don't have to be on the bottom anymore, that you have the capability of being back on top. And so I'm bringing you stories like the gentleman I'm about to introduce you to right now. A little side note, this is actually a recorded episode, and I tried to start this live, and so because this is a brand new project for me, I'm still learning and processing this, and I thought I lost all this audio, and we went live, and I found out that nobody can hear him, and we went 30 minutes, and we had to do it all over again, and then the second time, it was just really bad audio quality, but I figured out how to salvage the audio, and I'm so happy that I was able to, because we had just a solid conversation, and I'm so happy to bring it to you. The gentleman I'm about to introduce you to is a good friend of mine. We started in the Marine Corps together in MOS school, and I've been able to watch him grow and vice versa for, not to age myself, but the last 16 years. And so the gentleman I'm about to introduce you to is Lorenzo McNulty, the founder and owner of Lorenzo Leads and the Wealth Academy from Charlotte, North Carolina, author of A Girl's Gotta Have Her Own Money, Pretty, Powerful, and Profitable. Most importantly, he is a Marine Corps veteran, a father of 3, an author, and a digital philanthropist. Right when we tap in, we've probably actually missed the first 2 minutes of the second conversation, but I think because we did miss the first 2 minutes, we're picking up where he's talking about the 3 pillars of prosperity, which is an actual theme that he speaks about in his new book, Gold Diggers, Serious Gold Diggers Only. And so really listen to what's going on, and you're going to hear some stories about how he got out and he didn't know what his next move was. And there's beautiful stories about when he had to look his pregnant wife in the eye, who's sitting on the floor crying, ready to quit, and he had to pick it up. And so a lot of the stuff that we talk about translates into a lot of the veterans that I meet day to day while I'm shaking hands and introducing myself and advocating for them for transition. So I hope you enjoy the podcast. Tune back in if you do. And right now, all we need you to do is sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride.
Okay, and that was when we were talking about the book "A Girl's Gotta Have Her Own Money."
That's right.
Which is the guidelines to help people start a financial foundation in their life, something that they can build upon and ultimately experience freedom in their life, and it's built on the three pillars of prosperity, which is family, the relationships that you're in, finances, obviously, and then business. I believe that a part of the freedom equation is to own something of your own business, to a bit of people call it side hustle. Sometimes a lot of people I talk to call it a side hustle, but I think that everybody needs one, because it is a gateway to freedom, and we're all seeking that peace.
Now, you did name it "A Girl's Gotta Have Her Own Money," but it is not directly for just women, ladies and gentlemen. I've read it, and it's really a story about how he got here to this point, and why he felt he had to write this. A little background: there are very important women in your life. So can you talk about why you got into that book?
Absolutely. First, I love my mom, love my wife, and I've got two daughters. So I'm surrounded by ladies. I grew up in a predominantly female family full of aunts and grandmothers. And so there's a period in my time when I had just gotten out of the Marine Corps, and I moved back home, and my mom lost her husband, right? And we went through that whole thing, but what it was pulling out of that situation was the fact that there was no true financial education where we were, right? And if my mom didn't have it, then how was I to get it? Right, and I watched her go through the trials of trying to gain all of the knowledge quickly enough to where, you didn't have to sell off all of your stuff, and you didn't have to get evicted, and you didn't have to go through all of those different things. But so I watched it, and then it taught me the importance of a level of financial education. And again, I talk about a girl's got to have her own money, and I talk about the three pillars of prosperity, but it's a lot about how to set a structure that'll keep you afloat even when you don't truly understand all the nuances of how to invest and buy stocks and those kind of things. Just a level of education that you can build upon, and my wife, she comes from her father's got a dual master's degree, one in finance and one in something else, and he was like a whiz, or is like a whiz when it comes to that kind of thing. And then I saw that there wasn't a transition, so to speak. So I come from a household where there wasn't financial knowledge, and then she comes from a household where there was, and both of us were in the same boat with none, right?
Yeah.
And so, and I was like, well, I got two daughters coming behind me, and even in the book I talk about the difference between, being a man and then being a woman. Men, we talk about money. We talk about, going to make money and all these different things, but then, you get into the side where women have to retire with 100% of the income that they're making currently or at their last job, where men can survive with 80% of that, and then women still can't afford the basic necessities that women need, because women need different things than what men need.
Yeah.
Right. And just wanted to let my daughters know, to let my wife know, to let my mom know that, we're changing this.
Correct.
We are actively changing this, and it started there.
By being a model, as you said, by being what we see, we are role models, and how we model ourselves is we're modeling ourselves for our children. So, and you lead by example, because I like to joke with you, and I call you guide, but ever since I've known you, you've always been the guide. And so this kind of seems like a fitting role for you to be an author, and to be kind of an entrepreneur, but more a philanthropist, and give back to those who need it, and pick them up. I mean, what does it mean to you to be a guide? Because I can tell you what it means to me, by all means.
To me, it means that, I've got two brothers, and two younger brothers, and growing up in the environment that we grew up in, I saw that we were going in a direction that we couldn't afford to go in, and I was at the head of that, right? So my brothers were looking to me on how to react, how to respond, to all of these different scenarios that they were facing. And I had to make a decision and this is where the Marine Corps entered my life. It was like, the heavens opened up, and then all of a sudden there was a recruiter at my school during lunchtime, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is a sign. So, but I had to make a different choice, and so what being the guide meant to me, and it paired perfectly with the things within me. We were talking a little bit a while ago about how the Marine Corps boot camp helps you identify strengths within yourself that you didn't know.
Yeah.
You didn't know you had, right? Yeah. And being the guide to me was almost a perfect marriage, so to speak, because having been the oldest in a single parent household for quite some time, two smaller brothers, I had to be the person who would risk it first.
Yeah.
I had to be the person to take that step first, so that I can say, okay, well, this is a bad idea, guys. Let's turn the platoon around. We can't go this way, right? But and it came to a point where it was like, okay, how much of me, am I concerned with? Is it more me, or is it more about the people? Is it more me, or is it more about us achieving as a group, as that village that we've had preached to us for so long?
Yeah.
And my personal goals were to bring people with me. I got a friend who says that I need all of you to get good at what you're doing so you can make a lot of money, so that I don't have to be on a yacht by myself, right? and but that's
hey, I hear that.
right. You just imagine that you're on this massive yacht and you're by yourself.
Yeah, by yourself.
It's not gonna feel the same, right? So that sparked in me, like, I have to help people. I need people to be better off, because I was reading a bunch of different books, and they were talking about generational curses, and they always talk about them in the negative spin. And so I wanted to change that narrative. I wanted to break out of that normalcy of just saying, oh, well, you're going to be generationally cursed. Well, how about being generationally blessed? If we change that, right? If I can change a parent, or if I can encourage a parent or empower a parent, then they can then encourage and empower their kids, and that is a positive generation.
Gotcha.
Right? We're doing that kind of thing. So that's what a guide just means: leading people and being the first, and being not necessarily the sacrifice to the journey, but not being afraid to step in the pothole.
That's right.
And to prevent the whole ship from sinking.
And that again, for those tuning in right now, we were all kind of in conversation already, but that kind of leads into what we were speaking about earlier about failing and falling forward. And so, when we fail, we learn from our failures, and so we're able to move forward as leaders, right? And that's as military members, that's kind of natural to us, or we learn better ways to do it. But what is failing forward?
Failing forward is one. It's allowing yourself to make a mistake. We get into this perfectionist mentality where everything has to be perfect, and I'm guilty of that too. My business probably should have been launched 4 or 5 years ago, but I had to break free of that perfection thing. But failing forward is allowing yourself to make your own mistakes, allowing yourself to not just because if you tell me to do something and then I don't complete it to your standard, then that failure isn't for me. I'm not getting the most out of that, as if I make my own decision and then it falls, or yeah. I forget to tighten the wires into the ceiling fan, and all of a sudden it's making this is a real story, it's making a consistent knocking sound now. That taught me to pay attention to what I'm doing when the wiring is there, and to tuck the wiring in, right, the next time. But
I know. Hey, I'm a homeowner. I know that feeling.
These are real things.
That's a real thing.
But that's failing forward is absorbing the lessons. Not only are you pushing yourself up off the ground, you're like, okay, well now I know that's not the way to do it. Let's try something else. I think the last time we were talking about that 409 formula, right? The reason that it's named 409 is because it's the 409th time that they tried the chemical formula until they got it right, and apply that methodology, that consistency to anything that you do. That's failing forward.
They say Thomas Edison, it took him, I forget the number, but for purposes of just keep going with the conversation, they said it took 10,000 times to create the light bulb, and his critics were saying, it took you 10,000 times to get that right. And he said, no, it took me 99,999 times to figure out how to, or you got it wrong 999,000 times. And he's like, no, it took me that many times to learn this right. I'm the worst at regurgitating quotes, so, but you get the gist.
Absolutely.
But so you got here somehow, and like I said, I've known you for years, and I've watched you go through the process of getting to this person, and through the blessings of social media and whatnot, because obviously you and I are on different coasts, and there's no more meeting up on the weekends and playing bones, or just hanging out with the family. But though. Yeah, I mean, there will be a time where I'm going to be able to get on that jet, and but yeah,
absolutely.
There's kind of segueing into transition. You joined the military from a small town, and you had to. You went into this service where you were promised to see the world and blessings and learn stuff, and we were able to. Served together. You served your 4 years. You served in Iraq or Afghanistan, and then you got out. And so, can you tell me a little bit about what your transition was like?
I think the last time I described this, I said that it was terrifying. Did I say that? Did I say how
terrifying,
afraid I was? I was. For 5 years of 1 year of school and but 4 years in the Fleet Marine Corps, you're instructed your entire way. So there's a structure that to stay within your entire way, and after having done that for 5 years and then said, okay, well I'm going to make my own decisions now. That's scary.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are cornered by that particular fear as, okay, well, I could go out on my own and do my own business, start my own business. However, I can stay within this corporation, this corporate structure, and let people tell me what to do every day,
mm-hmm.
right? And so when I was, my EAS date was coming so fast, it was like, oh man, because I initially went in wanting to become an orthodontist, and life happened and changed all of that. So I was getting out and I didn't have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
As I didn't even recognize that I was going to be considered a veteran,
mm-hmm.
which then entitled me, or I had earned benefits by that point, and I didn't know. I wasn't aware of that, I was too busy, caught up in my own fear of what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Right. So I did what everybody else tends to do and just move back home.
Well, I mean, and we do that, and it legitimately, I tell people all the time, like, my mother and I, we bounced around because my mom and my dad were split from a young age, so I jumped around the country, and then, my mom ended up in Culver City, and that's where I call home because that's the last place I left from, and I didn't know where to go, so I just went back home. So, but I could have gone literally, I could have gone anywhere, and the same with you. You could have gone anywhere. You could have picked anywhere to call home, and you went back home. And what we do is we kind of realize something, that we're different. And you said it before, where your mind had expanded. So
Right.
what does that mean to you in terms of kind of going back home?
It was like someone had turned on a light, right? And then I was no longer within the environment, that had grown me up, and I'd spent my childhood there and all of my childhood friends and things of that nature. But the Marine Corps had matured me so fast, is what it felt like going back, and then you see a lot of the same things, and it's like, okay, my town was stuck in time, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and now
I love that. I love
now
that.
I've come
Not
back.
even my friend, my town. I talk about it.
Yeah.
I say, like, my friends. Oh man, that's good. My town was stuck in town. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. And so when you get there, you realize that your mind has been stretched, and that's one of those paradigm shifts where you don't see it until you leave, and then you come back,
Mm-hmm.
and you're able to kind of put on the visitor view, like you're the new set of eyes at this point, and you see all of those things, and you're matured, you're different, you're structured, you hopefully develop some skill at this particular point. At being a 5942, I was an aviation electronics technician. So now I come back with all of this exposure to the world and to a place that wasn't going to expose me to very much.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that was a painful thing, and it was and here's the decision that came into my mind. It was, do I settle? Right? Because I knew that I could achieve and accomplish anything that I wanted. I knew the town, I knew the people, I already had a bit of notoriety there, so people would vouch for me. And it was like, okay, do I take the easy route and just kind of assimilate back into this culture, slow myself down, shrink myself to fit within whatever role that they would have for me here, or after the 5 years of being challenged in the Marine Corps, do I continue that challenge? Do I continue to go and seek that challenge?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what ultimately had me move to Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah. And so what are some, so you said, do I settle? What kind of, man, that resonates hard with me. The word settle, it really just, I had to really ask myself the same thing, but, we'll get into that a little bit later. But what kind of things were you doing before you moved forward, before you fell forward, before you failed forward?
Well, I was, I went back and I was like, well, I'm just going to finish out my degree here, go to the University of Southern Miss, to the top is what they'll say. But my brother was there, he was going to school there. He was my first legit college roommate. And we, and I had been trying to get into meditation, but it was more prayer and just what direction, it was, that's all I wanted. I just wanted the direction. I knew I had the strength. I knew I had, the capability or the capacity to handle challenges. So what direction do I go, and here's a funny story. My wife won't think this is funny, but I was seeing a girl in Mississippi at the same time that my wife and I were trying to figure out what we were going to, my current wife, what we were going to do. And it was the same old thing. It was like I had just, everything stopped and paused and waited for me to do 5 years in the military and come back so that we could pick up and do the same things again. The only issue was me. I was the issue. This was one of those times where it's not you, it's me, and it really was me, and I had to break up with my hometown.
Yeah. Because you tried to kind of assimilate, right? Back in, trying to, you were, as you said, you had a Kanye moment, right?
Right. So the Kanye moment. I started to, do music, and I wanted to be an hip hop artist at one point. I wanted to do that, and so I started kind of tinkering around with that, and that was, I think, just the creativity, because I believe that we're all harboring a gift. We all have a gift, you know, and more times than not, we don't know what it is. We need to be around people to pull that out of us or to point us to that, you know.
Yeah.
The person in the mirror is the hardest person to assess.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what I felt was, okay, I'm supposed to be, I am a creator. I have to go and create, and you know, and my love of people was just always on me, you know. And growing up in Mississippi, it tests that love for people. Mississippi will test that love for people, you know. And so once I said, okay, well, I have to help people and I have to create, right? And I allowed it to happen, and on a whim, I moved, you know, to take on the challenge of Charlotte, because I didn't know anybody here but my wife now, Michelle, and we just moved out, you know, on this limb, so to speak, and it took a level of confidence in your abilities, but I felt like if I could survive, if I could excel in 13 weeks of Marine Corps boot camp, then there weren't going to be too many challenges that I would physically face and not be able to you know, to accomplish. So took the leap. Yeah. And here we are.
But you got into sales first, and you had an electronics background. So how did you get into sales?
So one of my favorite stores growing up was Radio Shack.
Okay.
You know, I used to love taking things apart, putting things back together, and so when I walked into Radio Shack, and I had this old Navy, was he a captain? Old Navy captain who found out I was a Marine, and he was like, "Yeah, man, you know, come on in. We'll teach you some stuff." And then my love for electronics came back. I got to play with resistors and capacitors and all these different things, and get all nerdy with the guys who use those things, you know, now on the civilian side of the world. So got into that, found sales cultivated that love for people, and it taught me how to express that love for people in servitude, right? So I would later find out that you know, the best leaders are servants to people. Like, we have to be able to serve people. It's not about us. It's about serving our people.
Okay.
And that's what sales. That's why I still I love sales to this day.
Yeah.
Because it's an avenue for serving people, and
it's led you to somewhere.
Yeah. And it's really it really took me. You know, it took me into the direction that I'm in right now, which, you know, I get to coach CEO level executives, you know, people starting their own businesses or been in businesses and things of that nature. But it all was rooted in sales, because it's a salesman world. There's a guy who wrote a book called Sell or Be Sold or something like that. But or if you're not buying, you're selling, or if you're not selling, you're buying, or something like that. And it's a constant thing. You're constantly in that. And why not use that skill to enhance the other characteristics? So if you're going to be a philanthropist, you know, being able to sell your story, being able to get people to identify with you is a great thing to have, which I kind of stumbled upon. I didn't really set out on that mission.
Yeah.
Sales kind of took me there.
And how many times was sales your first job out?
Sales was my first job out. I worked at Radio Shack. Radio Shack was my first job.
And when you had your first, so this was your first job out, right, as a salesman, and you had to, you know, go through the struggles of learning. And this is I'm bringing this up because this was a brand new kind of field for you, right? And you had to kind of relearn. Right. And here you are with a job where you can easily make $100,000, well, quote, easily. I won't get into that, but you can make six figures if you work for the right people and, you know, put in the hours and all that stuff. But you decided to kind of step away from, you know, the multimeters and the diodes and electrons, like you said, and you went into this first job, and you had to learn from somebody, right? Like, did you have a mentor? Like, how did you find your fit?
I got partnered with another Marine. His name was Jonathan, who had been working within the ranks of Radio Shack for quite some time, and then I had the Navy captain who was just, you know, an old Navy captain. You gotta know to know what they're like, and it was like, okay, I'm back in the shop. I'm back in the radar shop right now, you know, and we had multimeters and we had all of these things, so. They put us through a little bit of training, but most of it was just building upon a knowledge that the Marine Corps had given me already.
Now, you're speaking, I guess where I'm trying to hit on is I went into the radar field afterwards, and there was an old master gunny, and I'd say old very sparingly, but you know, he looks like he's in his 30s, but he's still old-minded. But he was and I like to call him my mentor, even though he may not call me his mentor, but he would tell me things like, look, we are not them. And I think only veterans would understand that. And this is a show for veterans, so I can speak like that. He would say, we are not them. And so as you're learning the trade from the old master or the Navy chief and the Marine that were there, but what else were you learning from them as not a civilian but a veteran?
How to calm down.
Okay.
They were teaching me to calm down. You know, a saying about Marines is that they get more done before 11 o'clock than civilians get done the entire day. Mm-hmm. And what I was finding is that was very true. Mm-hmm. Right, and I was there early, you know, 15 minutes early, there early, waiting on them. They were kind of, you know, they were out of the Marine Corps, be there 15-minute early rule, right? But I was there waiting in the parking lot, and so they kind of took me under their wing and was like, hey man, you know, you have longer than 11 o'clock to be here, right? So you can kind of pace yourself, but. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to pace myself because, you know, one, we were servicing the community, and two, we were getting paid to do it. So the more that I did it, the more, you know, income that I could make, and with that mentality of fixing so many problems as quickly as I possibly can, as accurately as I possibly can, it helped me, you know, make a lot of revenue. Yeah. Right. So, but it was a balance thing, and they were teaching me how to deal with civilian people, because you can't just take them out behind to the tree line and, you know, show them what's what, right?
Don't we wish?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
But we won't. For everybody listening, we will not take you back on the tree line where there is no backyard brawls or as you and I know, behind the laundry room of Barracks 100. So
absolutely.
400. So carry on.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, and they were teaching me, you know, it was civilian sensitivity training, you know, because you can't use that Marine Corps language that is normally filled with F-bombs and other very, very colorful language, you know. Yeah. So they were kind of bringing me out of that and teaching me the same thing that I was teaching my kids, like use your words, you know, use your words. Yes. You know how to use your words.
Yes.
So those two people, they kind of, I'm happy to have encountered them first, because they understood where I was coming from, you know, and they kind of got me on a course and helped me survive that.
So what's like the biggest surprise about the civilian workforce that you found, besides having the timely manner? What's a different? What are some other surprises, some differences between military and civilian life?
Well, the civilians have no true understanding of what it's like to be a veteran.
Yeah.
You know, unless they've had one in their family or something like that. But most of them think that we've gone overseas, we've killed kids, and we've come back and we're crazy, right? And that is not the truth. You know, I found a lot of encounters with the civilian world. I was explaining that, just saying, no, I don't know what they're showing. What show are you watching? Stop watching that show. That's not true, you know?
Yeah.
And trying to keep our name, you know, the Marines are proud of their name, and to keep it clean, to keep it respectable, you know. And the biggest thing was trying to explain that and trying to balance, because part of me was like, oh, how could you be so, you know? And the other side was, okay, I have to embrace this compassionate stance and help guide you, because you seem so fragile in every way. And that's another part. You know, you can feel your strength as a veteran. You can feel the strength of your training, the strength of every single thing that you've gone through, especially in relation to, you know, and nothing bad about civilians. I love you guys.
Hey, we do love you guys. Don't get it twisted.
We really, really do.
Absolutely. I mean, we would have never jumped in that men's club if we didn't. So
absolutely. But you know, you feel that, and it goes both ways, because they feel like you're crazy. You know, like you're a little off. You have to be a little off to have gone into the military. So it's a delicate balance, and you're trying to educate, but not leave them out there with any misinformation. You know, because chances are you're going to encounter a few veterans in your life. You know, old ones, new ones. You know, and we're constantly coming out of the military branches. So that was a challenge. The other thing was structure.
Yes.
There's I say that, and it's like a mythical thing, even you know,
talk
in
about
the corporation.
Talk about it. Please talk about it. Please.
Oh my goodness. They have this lack of structure that basically causes chaos. You know, you could see the chaos that is stemming from these things like what is it? What do they call it here? The open door policy, right? Where you can jump the chain of command and just go straight to the top, you know. And you'll have these things, and I'm like, but you didn't even tell me, you know. And like, so you jumped over not only me but my boss and my boss's boss, and then went straight here to file your complaint. And I'm like, oh wow, there is no tree line. There is no tree line there, you know. But the lack of structure is shocking.
Yes. You know, it's funny. And so I'll say a little story. Before I do, I'm getting some text in that your volume's kind of off. So if you can try to talk directly into the phone, maybe it'll work. But
got it.
There you go. That's better. One of the things I had an issue where similar, you know, I felt my company hired me specifically because I was a Marine, and that because I was a Marine, I knew how to get things done in a timely manner. I was kind of on autopilot, and, you know, there were, I had qualities about me that I thought that's why they hired me for. And so, you know, I think 2 to 3 months into my time there, I was given my own system, which is, you know, unheard of. And, you know, everybody was kind of down talking me like, what do you know? You know, you're just a new guy. I don't know why you have your own system. But, you know, I didn't have to play into them, and all I had to do is do my work and show people why. And there was a 40-plus-year-old man who, you know, he was just testing me, and, you know, he wouldn't listen to me because I was the new guy, and that same kind of thing. And, you know, where do I go from there but to knife hand him? you know, just to, you know, I you know, stood him. I didn't physically touch him, but, you know, I locked him up, and I was like, your integrity is crap. You know, I verbally said, your integrity is shit. You're lazy, and you need to get off my program. I swear to God. And, you know, somebody there stopped it all. But realistically, I'm lucky and blessed to have had veterans as my kind of supervisors. But they pulled me in, and they said to me, "Hey, look, you're not in the Marine Corps anymore. You can't talk to people like that." And it was two things happened from that. I really had to do some soul searching when I went home. I was talking to Arlene, and I really had to like redefine who I was. But most of all, it really put a collar on me. They put a leash on me, and it took away my. I don't want to say take away, but it really just, I guess, took away my Marine.
Yeah.
Have you experienced anything like that, where you have just had to really just stop being yourself to placate to others?
Yeah, absolutely. And I still to this day, when people, I save the "I'm a Marine" thing towards the back. Like, they sense it anyway.
Yeah.
Wherever there's apparently a way we carry ourselves and we interact with people, so people sense something. They don't know exactly what it is, but they sense it. And so when I tell people, yes, I'm a veteran Marine, I'm a Marine or whatever, and they say, "Oh, well, that explains it." Like, I just explained my entire life to them by just telling them that. What does that explain? What does that explain exactly? Because I may need these answers, but and you know how big the branches are on discipline.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a you can just do anything to anybody or say anything to anybody without an understanding that there's a consequence associated with all of these things, and we don't, in the civilian world, we don't exercise that. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And so that allows for a lot of the things that we have happening, and it was like, well, I can't be the only person that is executing on the discipline side of it, mm-hmm. right? Because I've got bosses telling me, no, we don't do that. We let them continue to mess up the system, even mm-hmm. though you got to deal with this mess on the back end, and all you
been like this. Yeah. This is how it's been for years. That's what
exactly.
we hear. It's been like this for years.
Yeah, and so they wanna, and I feel in the times that I've been in those Fortune companies working, is that they want to soften you up, like mm-hmm. the executives, nothing against them, they've earned and worked towards everything that they have, but they want to soften you, mm-hmm. And there's no accountability mm-hmm. To that degree, but there's no accountability to the hierarchy either. So you have a hierarchy, or on paper you have a hierarchy, but it doesn't function as what I know a hierarchy is supposed to be, right? Like, yeah. I've got vice presidents handling things that sales reps should be handling and should be empowered to handle.
Yes.
I think that's the other part that was kind of challenging was, in the military, you're empowered to make decisions and to change things and to do your job, right? Yeah. They expect you to do your job. Here, it's more like you kind of have to hold hands and make sure everybody, gets the participation trophy that they're due, and we're not competing, and all of the different things. And I'm like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't understand. What do you mean we're not competing? We're not going fast? What's happening here? So yeah. I get that kind of put your Marine on the back burner and don't bring him out until we say it's approved. So.
And a lot of that transferred into what you do now as a consultant for businesses to become more kind of deep rooted in leadership and how to treat people and success and financial goals and successful goals within the company and personnel. And so you got to a point where you were leading and you're coaching, but you were still transitioning. And I want you to kind of talk about some of the stuff where you're successful in the business world, but you're really struggling on the inside and finding yourself as a person. And specifically, here's one of the most powerful stories you have is kind of when the light switch turned on for you on, I need to get my shit together. And that was the story of you, for me, it was the story of when you and your pregnant wife had to, were walking groceries up the stairs. Let's talk about the outside of the workplace and talk about, how to find yourself as a man or as a person. And then, those just realistic moments when you're like, oh man, like what is going on with my life?
That's so transitioning from the military, you're good at functioning within a structure, mm-hmm. right? If there are guidelines and if you can see the guidelines and you understand them, you can become super efficient, and super effective. However, in your regular life, where the transition is hitting you most, your personal life, you're doing exactly what you said. You're trying to find yourself, right? And in searching for myself, I found that we were in this 1-bedroom apartment. My wife is 8 months pregnant at this point, and I'm working from like 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. trying to figure something out, right? Trying mm-hmm. to find one avenue that I can go to, and it was she. I came home one day and I saw her. She was just sitting on the floor, all big and pregnant and crying. And so I asked her what's wrong, and she was like, "I can't do this anymore." Right? And that, I don't know how other men feel, but if the woman who is with your child and to be with you for the rest of your life says that she can't anymore, then you feel like, okay, what am I doing next? Because whatever I do next has to solve for this. Like, I can't come home and have this happen again, right? Mm-hmm. And so once that was happening, and here we are again. Had I been ahead of the benefits, had I had someone to help me go through the benefits and things like that, we would have been in a much, much better position to have a baby, to buy a house, and get all of those ends settled that I didn't really have. Here I went in at 18, and so basically, it's like 18-year-old, you're a man now, go out and do man stuff, right?
Right.
Pretty much.
Oh.
And I was struggling, I was struggling trying to keep up I'm strong enough for you to lean on me too, right? Yeah. When you don't feel like you can, I'm still strong enough for you, even though like on the inside, I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I got to get a different job. I got to, my family, this is my family. And I'm the guide here again. Like I gotta to lead us somewhere, and it's a ton of pressure.
Did you ever feel like quitting?
I did feel like quitting, but feeling like quitting it makes me embarrassed.
Yeah.
Like I feel like really you're gonna that little voice creeps in, is like, really?
Yeah.
You've come this far and you're going to give up every step that you've taken this far, and so I threw my little pity party at one point, and we were trying to find somewhere to go and have our children, a house, and like I was in the closet, like just in there, like crying because I didn't see anything. I couldn't see. I had no vision of what was supposed to be next, and I've got a crying wife, and that thing that's happening with her, we're about to bring a child into the world, and I still don't know who I am. Mm-hmm. I don't know where I'm going, because the Marine me isn't as effective in this environment where they're saying, no, don't bring the Marine you to work, know.
Yeah.
So,
and it's something to, and I'm, it's hard for military men especially to voice that, they were embarrassed, and, they had to figure out how to do things, and that they don't have all the answers. And it's even more, to be able to say, man, I did lock myself in a closet and cry. And, I wrote about it in my book. I locked myself in the bathroom one day when I saw my first electric bill in my new house.
Right.
I tell you, and, the service does not set us up for the outside. I don't care how many transition classes you get. You don't get that class on just, that's the word.
Right.
That, but
crash course.
It's a crash course, and and McNulty will tell you, just like I'm about to tell you, we're still figuring it out. As successful as we have gotten from where we used to be, it's still a choice. And I'm saying that because this podcast is specifically for people who are walking down that path of just confusion and being lost, and there's hope out there, and I wish you could shake this man's hand on the other side of me, because coming from where we used to be to where we are today, there's hope. So when you did figure it out, and you didn't figure it out, what was your next step to getting out of that?
The first step that I took was, okay, I believe that everything has to start at home.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife was going through her thing, and to be honest, I wasn't terribly good at relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I knew how to shoot an M16. I knew how to I knew how to troubleshoot, using schematics. I knew all of these things. I'd proven and tested in all these things, and I could romp around with the guys, which is what I had done for like the past 5 years. But getting out and trying to, because that's a transition too. You're transitioning into civilian relationships.
Yes.
Yes. And to be able to say that I sat in the floor of my closet and cried. That's not something that I would have said this easily then.
Nope.
Right? And that's a part of that relationship building that you need to be able to have, and I didn't have that. So my thoughts were, okay, well, I need to work on my relationship, and as long as I can have that foundation, as long as I can build from there, that's home base. Mm-hmm. And then I can go and do anything else. But I'm trying to build that support system was my first thing. So me and Michelle started spending a lot more time together, or trying to spend a lot more time together. Kids, she was working in the mall, and I was working at the cell phone store, and working retail hours, and barely seeing each other, missing each other all these different times, but trying to create a space where we can build the platform of our relationship so that we could do everything that we wanted to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned that light bill, man. Our lights were getting cut off like every other month, it felt like. And, that wasn't something that we were prepared for.
Yeah.
It was, transitioning into, okay, we're not in the barracks anymore. Now I'm responsible for my light bill, my water bill, and food. I got to go and feed myself. There's no chow hall.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, you mentioned hopelessness, because that feeling is a make or break feeling when you're in that space of hopelessness, because it's dark, and part of it is you're creating darkness, because that's what our minds do. Whatever we anchor ourselves in, our mind is going to go and find every single thing, every experience we've ever had, and bring it to that moment, right? So we feel all of that darkness, and we need something that's a light, something that, a candle in the distance. And I remember thinking, I looked at my trophy cabinet, And I offer that advice to every transitioning military member. Is coming out of the military, you have a cabinet full of shiny trophies. You've accomplished so many different things.
Yes.
Things that people will never do in their life.
That's right.
And you've done it at the beginning of your life. So you've set yourself up for levels of achievement that many people won't see, right? But from time to time, you need to remember that. You need to look at your trophy case and admire what you've done, everything that because each trophy represents a challenge that you have faced and overcome.
Yeah.
Right? And that was the thing that, and I heard that in a church, and they were like, look at your trophy case and something, and I would later go and hear it at a different church, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe this trophy thing is something. I might need to hang on to that for a little bit.
Yeah.
But that was the next thing. So
you took that and you really, you wrote about it in A Girl's Gotta Have Her Own Money. That was kind of an anchor for a reflection point of what you never wanted to feel again, and that's kind of how you drove yourself to where you are today. Am I right?
Absolutely. I have this thing that says, I want to limit the amount of times that somebody can tell me no. Right? And if you tell me no, I'm probably going to, my brain goes into overdrive figuring out a way to not have this. And we need a healthy dose of no's in our life, because sometimes we just make some crap decisions, right? But we need that. But that feeling of seeing my wife on the floor, my lights being cut off, and just the depression, it's depression because you don't know. You don't have an example to follow. You don't have, my mom was back in Mississippi, so I would call her, but that was it. I still had to get off the phone and go face the world.
That's right.
Right? And you get to that point and you say, okay, well, I've experienced that. We're not having that anymore.
Good.
What do we do differently?
That's right.
Right.
And that's kind of, again, back to that failing forward. And, a lot of what I do today is, and I tell vets all the time, we are walking the course, and people have walked this course before us. And because we are out trying to figure it out for ourselves, we kind of forget that there's other people who have done it before us, and that's what you're doing. And I mean, man, I appreciate you so much, because you and I are so similar in the fact that we have knowledge and we don't need to hold on to it. What does it do for us to hold on to it? So we pay it forward, in a sense, and we've set that foundation. And it's, anybody listening today, I really love the structure of Maslow's pyramid, where we set the foundation, even as fathers and in our relationships, we set the foundation of the baseline of where we want to get to, that self-actualization. And the higher we set our foundation, the generation below us gets to walk that foundation at a higher level so they can reach self-actualization faster. And it should not be it shouldn't be a greedy thing, like, I don't want you to get to the pinnacle before I do. So
absolutely,
you're doing the best thing possible by writing these books, by speaking on Facebook Live and the Periscope, and you're giving just valuable information that is useful. And the thing is that people behind you will use that, and it's something, and I'm speaking for the both of us, it's something that both McNulty and I wish we had. We wish we had somebody that said, hey, I've been there, I've been there, I get it.
Absolutely.
So I want to, there's one thing about the book. You had to really kind of hone in on A Girl's Gotta Have Her Own Money. You came up with this title, and what were some parts of the book that you had to force yourself to write?
The why, the part about why I was on the path that I was on, and it's because it's a personal thing. It's a personal story, and I as I was writing it, like tears came to my eyes because I went back to that moment. I'm in that moment, and I remember sitting in the hospital with my mom, and this is the most quiet room, and it's just me, her, and then her husband, who had just passed away from a heart attack, and so I'm seeing these things, and I was like, no, let me take it out, let me find a different way to put the story out there. I'm going to take all this personal stuff out, and so I called my mom, and I was basically seeking permission, because it's not just my story, it's her story, it's his story, and our family's story. So I had to call her, and she gave me the green light. She said, go ahead, people need to hear the story. But the most difficult thing to do was to take all of those memories and all of that stuff that hurt still, like it still hurt, and put it on the paper and then reread it until the story was accurate, right? Keep reliving it and going back to it. But I think that it helped in the grieving process, but that was the most challenging thing about that book.
Were you scared for other people's reactions once you hit submit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there is the tension right before you hit submit, and the world can see what you have. You've cried, you've shed blood, and everything over, right? And they have an opportunity to critique it without knowing the history, without knowing what has gotten you to that point. And sometimes it's harsh. Sometimes it's something that we don't want to hear. We want everything to be perfect. We want it to be right and loved, but it was nerve-wracking for a little bit.
And I mentioned this kind of earlier, but you surprise the world all the time, and kind of like Beyonce, you just throw stuff out there out of nowhere, and you actually today dropped a bomb on the world. What is that bomb?
That bomb is the new book called Serious Gold Diggers Only.
There we go.
Yeah. It made its first appearance today, and it's an electronic book. It's an ebook about the structure for setting goals, and a lot of the readings that I do, I take a look at personality characteristics and the characteristics like integrity, honesty, and those things. Those are they're character traits, and then personality traits, right? Personality traits can be learned. So if you speak well, that's a personality trait, right? But if you are a person with a high level of integrity, that's a character trait, And so what I was trying to find in these books, and Strength Finder, and I read The Alchemist quite a few times. I just love the way that story flows. But we as people, we like it quick. We like it instant. We want our gratification right now, and 5 minutes sooner than
That's
what
right.
we think we want it, right?
Yeah.
And so I knew that I had to create something that aligns with that thought process, right? Because if it's not easy, if we figure out, if we feel we can't use it, then we won't, And the power of having a goal is it gives you your why, right? We talk about developing your why. We talk about the structure, and you can apply to anything that you desire in this world. The structure of a goal is very, very simple. We go into the systems. And we talked about that a little bit earlier. It's not as much about the goal as it is the system that keeps the goal afloat, right? If the goal is the car, the systems are the tires, the motor, the things that make the car what the car is.
Yes.
So yeah, we dropped that today, and it's the debut of it today.
So when's that coming? When do we get to read that?
We're building some momentum behind it right now. So it's not presently available to the public. A few special people will get to preview it first, and then within the next 2 weeks we'll be releasing it to the public.
And you also over the summer dropped the bomb, the Wealth Academy. Let's talk about the Wealth Academy.
Yes. The Wealth Academy is my pride and joy. It is.
Hey, don't tell Zoe that.
I know, right?
Zoe's
I hope my kids aren't listening.
Beautiful
right?
Little daughter. The smallest one of the two.
Right. So we saw an issue, and I saw an issue as first. I have my military guys in mind, my veteran transitions, and all the things that we're teaching at the Wealth Academy are things that I wished that somebody would have sat me down as soon as I stepped out of those yellow footprints and into the civilian world and understood that, okay, well, you're going to have to change the way you do relationships. You're going to have to change the way you look at your finances, and then you're going to need something else that you own. So we talk about the 3 pillars of prosperity, which is family, finance, and business. And that's better relationships, better bank accounts, and better business, right? And so our Wealth Academy is built on that. It's built on building better people. The simplest form of it. It's a life class with a focus on finance.
And can you touch on the structure? Because I know that over the once you introduced it to us, you had a kind of a deal going on. Not a deal. I don't want to break it down so simple as that. But you were offering your service for. You were offering it to people who just needed to grasp on. How did that work out?
It was trying to identify who our target audience was.
Gotcha.
And the challenge that we took on was that people are comfortable, and it's difficult. It's a challenge to get people to do things that are uncomfortable temporarily to get them the better end goal, right? And so we were like, okay, everybody needs this. Everybody needs to build better relationships with people, build better bank accounts, and then own a side business or a side hustle to some degree. And we teach you how to start that. And so we rolled it out, and then we see that not many people are grasping it, right? Like not many people are feeling like they need to have a healthier bank account or healthier relationships, right? And so we launched, and then we failed. Yeah. We failed. We bombed, failed. So and for people listening, that is a very honest and powerful thing that a CEO of anything can say, because it's the clarity of, hey, it does not work on the first time. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Right. And so to touch on that, a lot of people, go into that entrepreneurial space and they think, I have the best idea. I don't know why the world hasn't thought of this yet. Everybody's going to want this.
That's me every day.
Every day. That is right. And that's what I'm saying. This is an everyday thing, guys. So you're going to wake up and feel this way again tomorrow. True or fail. Yeah. Right. And so we bombed, and it was disheartening. You go through the process of failure, and you're like, okay, well, what? And I use this method called start, stop, and continue, right? So what were we missing that we need to start, right? And we were looking at the holes in our business and where we were missing people. Was the website having holes in it? Was it the enrollment process? Was it the information itself? So you go through and you start reassessing all the things that you thought were so perfect in the first place, and then you stop something. It's like, okay, well, am I sending too many emails? Am I too exposed? Because that's a thing too. You can be too much out there, giving out free content and that whole thing, and it's a supply and demand equation that you're trying to balance, right? And then what are we doing well? What was good? What is producing the outcome that we want, which is what we want to continue? So start, stop, and continue.
Mm-hmm.
But we finally started to hone in on our target audience. And we finally, and it was like a light switch again. You turn on the light switch, it's like, okay, well, I'm getting a little bit of action over here on this side. So let me take a look and see what these people are,
Mm-hmm.
and that's identifying your target audience, right? And then we started getting more people because they were sharing it, right?
Yep.
So we were like, okay, let's make shareable content. The content needs to be shareable, right? If we're getting traction over here, let's put a little bit more effort over here.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure if that answers your question.
No, it does. It answers the question. And you know what? That could actually tie into how we live our lives. It's we say that the definition of insanity is doing something over and over and over again, expecting the same results. And that ties into if you're out there putting resumes out on monster.com 16 hours a day and you haven't got a call back in 3 months, you need to step back and reevaluate what you are doing. That is just the process. This is a process of growth. There's a process to growth. If it's funny, I just thought of this off the top of my head, but I was watching a YouTube video of how a vine climbs up the tree, and what it does is there's the vine, this small little vine will just keep, and fast forward this show, it will just keep wrapping around over and over and over again until it grabs onto something, and then it climbs up then it finally climbs up this tree or this ladder, but it's sitting there for days and days, maybe weeks, just wrapping around in the air like, hey, let me grab onto something. But that's what you're talking about. You're saying that,
absolutely.
This is a process of wrapping around and reaching out and trying to figure out what does work, and it doesn't all work, and you can't force things to work sometimes. And then the stuff that does force, it's unnatural, and you're going to find yourself not exhausted, exactly. So, kind of going into the back end of transition. If you could redo your transition, what would you do differently?
I learned this year about VSOs.
Okay.
And that's
VSOs are veteran service officers or organizations. Right. VSOs are the organizations such as the DAV, the CalVet here in California. You've got AmVet. So those are the organizations that outside of the VA can help you the same way the VA can help you. Just the lines aren't as long. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they fight for you.
That's right.
We come out of a place where we've got brothers and sisters in arms that would fight any battle for us, to a place to where it's just us. It's just us fighting our battles and hoping that we know what battles are the ones to be fought, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we need allies, even in the civilian world, where it's somebody who's going to be looking out for our best interests, somebody who is knowledgeable and looking out for our best interests, which that was something that I was missing,
mm-hmm.
And I got out in 2005, and here we are, 2016, and I recently learned about it. I would have done that a whole lot sooner.
Yeah.
Whole lot sooner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so to kind of add to that, again, to everybody listening, you're talking, when I got out, I went to the Disabled American Veterans, not even having a disability rating at the time, but they were a door that was open near the VA, and they significantly just walked me through the whole process. My medical records were still stuck in Okinawa, and they reached out and got those, and then they got me all my my appointments for my back and whatnot, and changed my marital status and all the stuff that we don't know how to do, and then we don't know out there. Like, I learned that we're able to be buried, you know, basically for free. I know how morbid that sounds, but when a person passes away, you know, that's an expense on your family. But as a veteran, you know, I learned through a VSO that your family does not have to take that on anymore. So there's a plethora of knowledge through these VSOs, and, you know, I'm happy you said that, because I'm actually working with the DAV right now, but that's time for another story. And so, you and I have both started out with limited knowledge and kind of just built up to where we are today, and we continue to learn and build on the learnings that we learned from. And by no means are we done working for being better. We stand in a time where we want everything now, like you said. We need that instant gratification, and even if it does happen, when we get it, we don't know how to hold on to it. So I want to say again, Lorenzo McNulty, the guy on the other side, Nulty, you and I, especially you're astronomically different from the McNulty I knew even 4 years ago. So what advice can you give to the brokenhearted and the individuals, the veterans specifically, on the verge of what we call the fuck-its?
I know that cliff very well, you know, and I'll preface it with this. This probably won't be the last time that you're there. All right, we all will get to that moment,
yes,
where it's like, it's just not worth the headache, the hassle, or anything like that. The best advice, or the thing that I wish that someone would have told me, is that there's hope.
There's hope.
You know, and as long as there's breath in your lungs, there's hope. And as long as you know you make a conscious decision that everything that has pushed you down before is behind you, or you can get up. You know, you keep getting up until your arms are tired. You've done it before.
Yeah.
In your military training, you've done it a million times before. You'll face worse things in there than you will out here.
Yeah.
So partner.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Get around other veterans, get around veteran institutions,
yes,
you know, and believe it or not, get around those veterans coming behind you,
mm-hmm.
because there's something about, you know, serving people that will empower you to go on and find that strength that you didn't think that you had. You know,
right.
if you're not doing it for you, or feel like you have a reason, and that's a thing that hits kind of close to home for me, is because I've known veterans who voice that thing, and you know, they were older than me, they were younger than me, and I still found myself saying, hey man, you know, you're more valuable to us here than anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're valuable to those young Marines coming behind you, those young veterans coming behind you, you know, because you've gone through something that they can use. They haven't gone through it yet, or they may feel like you felt during that moment that you overcame it, right? And so just share that knowledge, continue to share that knowledge.
There's it's that brought up a point. You had a talk some months ago about what we can learn from millennials, and you know, I know you and I are kind of old school Marine Corps and kind of old school, just generational, but you had very good key points on how we need to kind of change our mindset. Just tap onto that real quick. I know it's kind of jumping from here and there, but essentially these are the quote millennials coming out, and you know,
right.
we can't look down at them.
Yeah, and that's the thing that, you know, we've been trying to, I guess, stand in the gap for, is the looking down on the millennials, and understanding that we are indeed better when there's a community of us, mm-hmm. right? And, you know, just like we're in some embattled zone or some war zone or like that, the more eyes that we have on the perimeter, the better we are on the inside.
That's right.
Right? And we use that as an analogy to embrace our millennials, to embrace that fresh new knowledge, right? Because we, as the seniors, and that sounds weird to say, but as the seniors, we get trapped into a perspective, right? And we tend to think that we have this direction and we're going to go this way, even though we're learning, but we're learning in a specified direction, right? And that can create blind spots where we need those fresh eyes. We need those youthful eyes to come in and say, oh, hey, did you see this, or have you seen this? And bringing us back to that center to where we can help people. And a lot of times what we've seen is that, the older generations kind of write them off.
Yes.
Like,
yes. Hey, I'm almost guilty. I'm guilty, but I've had to, again, grow, right? So.
Right. We grow anyway.
Yeah.
And we absorb that knowledge. We need that knowledge. We need that perspective, that vantage point that the younger group will see. For one, if we're out here and we want to serve that community of people, we need insight into that community. And there's no purer place than from the community itself.
Right. The horse's mouth.
There you go. So if you want to continue to help veterans and things of this nature, or whatever it is your walk of life is taking you or you're on, that youthful group that's coming behind you is going to give you the best feedback for your mission.
That's you're a big reader, and and if you were to pick one book besides your own and mine, what book would you recommend that transitioning veterans read?
Oh man, I am a big fan of The Alchemist.
Okay.
And it's not the most challenging book, or it's not the greatest novel in the world, but The Alchemist teaches you to appreciate all of your struggles, to appreciate your challenges, because how they say tables turn, or what goes around comes around. You live long enough to see the value in everything that you maybe have made a mistake through, or you felt like you were a failure, but it's shaping you for something. And the Alchemist teaches you about that story. Yeah. Like, everything has a purpose, and the world is speaking a language that if once you're in tune to, you'll be able. Will Smith talks about this, Oprah talks about this, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger. It's like the list goes on of these people who we deem successful people. They talk about this thing, and the Alchemist puts it into words more clearly than any book that I've read so far. People say that The Secret is another good book to read about it, but The Alchemist makes it so plain, and it's so relatable too. Yeah. So that's the book that I would recommend.
And a similar book that I know you'd recommend is Think and Grow Rich. And yes. I can sit down and legitimately talk about the power of suggestion and law of attraction all day long. But the thing about, if you do read The Alchemist and you're listening to this podcast and you pick it up, do go into it with an open mind and without bias, because if you do, things like that can change your life. So kind of wrapping up, I want to ask just one big question. So I invited you onto this show because you are somebody that I look up to as a peer and a friend, as well as a veteran who had to walk through the fire of transition. So who's a veteran that you feel has made a comeback or has a comeback story that should be on this show?
Oh, man.
Because they're getting invited, so...
I've got a few different buddies on there. The person I keep in contact with most is Cap. Remember
Okay.
Captor? Yeah, Tom is he's doing some big things. Him and his wife, I see him all the time. We're friends on Facebook, so we exchange positive vibes every once in a while, and they're saying that they'll stop by Charlotte, but yeah, I like what they're doing out there, and they're helping people.
Good.
So that's a good thing.
We're gonna tap into you, Cap. So this is gonna be kind of your moment to pitch what you gotta pitch, to say what you gotta say, to let it off your chest right now. If somebody owes you money, you can say it right now, and I'll make sure they hear it. So
Okay, I'm glad. So $20 is owed to me now. But
Lopez.
Right, Lopez, I will see you, okay? Well, again, my name is Lorenzo McNulty. I am the founder of the Wealth Academy. You can find me at lorenzoleads.com and at the Wealth Academy on Instagram, and I'm at Lorenzo Leads on Facebook and Twitter. So reach out to me. I love to hear from all of you guys with any questions, comments, concerns, emotional outbursts. I tend to find myself asking for those. But, yeah, thank you for having me, man. I greatly appreciate it.
No, I had a blast, and I know we had some technical difficulties early on, and people missed some good stuff, but there was more good stuff, and there will be more good stuff. I know I've already talked to you. I want to tap into you about some father and some husbandry stuff, because we can go deep on that. So
yes.
But this is Lorenzo McNulty, the owner and the founder of Wealth Academy and Lorenzo Leads. He is one of the most genuine people I know, and I am glad to have had you on the show as my first guest. So for those of you listening, I want to thank you for turning in. Oh, that was loud. But I want to thank you for coming in and listening to us talk and bump our gums. So if this has helped anybody, just pass it forward, pay it forward, and let somebody know that you can come out of the darkness and stand on top of the mountain. So with that being said, everybody have a wonderful evening, drive safe, and until next time, this is You're the Vet.